Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. This is Inside the Huddle with Nebraska Football Hall of Famer Jay Foreman.
Fires a pass, and it's intercepted by the Huskers at the 25, Jay Foreman. And Foreman takes it down to the 19-yard line of Oklahoma. Another big play by the Blackshirts.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging.
Good early morning. Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging, 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. They can take care of almost all your medical needs. And plantar fasciitis seems like it's been a growing issue. Probably, you know, if you listen to people, probably Harrison to say us Americans have put on weight. Too many runs, too many steaks, too many beers, and therefore it will lead to some more plantar fasciitis. And then actually Dr. Razin over there has a very unique procedure that can help it. And I know plenty of people, including myself, that it's helped. And I will tell everybody that I can to go over there and see them. So anyways, we appreciate their support. Appreciate you guys listening. Obviously, it's in the end of January. This is last week in January before we turn to February, which is crazy because it just seems like yesterday it was New Year's. And obviously with a lot of stuff going on in the last 3 or 4 weeks, Husker football putting the final bow on their, I guess, recruiting class. Yeah, I think that, I think there's another commitment day, but I think the way it ended in the early commitment and the transfer portal, is addition because, school started, I think on the 21st or 22nd or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was this week, Monday, when it started up again.
Yeah, so you got that. You got Husker men's basketball that played. Husker men's and women's basketball played yesterday. And so we'll jump into that. But then obviously, more importantly, it is Championship Sunday here with the AFC and NFC about to go at it here. First game's at 2, second one's at 5. Obviously, both winners will end up in Las Vegas in the Super Bowl in a little bit under 2 weeks. So, it's a sports weekend. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on, but through social media, Harrison, obviously the Nebraska football team is getting started into the first phase of their off-season winter conditioning. And people always ask about, what does it mean? What's the difference between winter conditioning, spring ball, and then obviously fall camp? And I think there are 3 different things. And generally, when you come back after a long break, you got to think Nebraska, the guys that are presently on the roster or previously on the roster that are presently still on the roster, they hadn't played or they haven't done anything football-wise since the day after Thanksgiving. So that's, essentially 2 months, give or take. You got the rest of November, obviously all of December, and then majority, in theory, or, of January. So it's about 2 months off. That's a long time. A lot of things can change. Obviously, the recruiting classes have changed, which Nebraska, knocked it out of the park. You got a lot of enrollees. So it's a different vibe. And the thing is, as soon as the season's over, you go about 2 or 3 weeks of, not even 2 or 3 weeks around here. You probably go about a week of evaluating how the season went, trying to dive into it, whether it was any positives and then going 5-7 again, especially when you just needed one victory the last 4 games. You try to assess where you're at as far as recruiting. And then, everybody wants to, as soon as, say like the linebackers don't play good or whatever, well, we need, everybody thinks that a coach is going to make players play different. Now, there is some truth to that, but ultimately you got to be, accountable for your actions out there on the field. And then you get into this offseason, and it's really unique. In Harrison, here's how I would explain it. It's like you go away for 2 months. I guess it's like if you were in like a I don't even want to say an army because there's no comparison, but just you're in some sort of group. You break up, you disband, you go home. You kind of, as soon as the season is like out of your system, you're 100% hopeful that this is the year. Now, when I played, it had to be that. It's 4th and 1 every single day, even when you're at home. Because in the back of your mind, if me and you were in competition, even if I was the starter or say you was the starter, or in my case, after my redshirt year, the 2 guys that played all the snaps were gone, 2 seniors. So if I'm at home, I got Harris in the back of my mind. I got somebody else in the back of my mind. Hopefully they had me in the back of their mind. And maybe they didn't. Maybe I was able to, kind of catch up on them. So you're always in a constant competition with yourself. That's where they're at right now. And then when you get back and you start, nobody's in perfect shape right now, right? Because if you're in peak physical condition right now,
peaking at the wrong time.
Yeah, you're peaking at the wrong time. And so, but you still can measure guys up, right? And so, just say that me and Harrison had a conversation before we went on winter break, and then I can get an assessment of where we are as a group, as a say linebacker group or individuals as players, of what you look like. Have you taken care of your business? Is your mind right? That's where you're kind of measuring guys up. And then the coaches are doing the same, because a lot of times the coaches see if you pass the eye test, if you gained too much weight, if you lost a lot of muscle mass. Because in the reality, even though you've been off for 2 months, you can't take 2 months off, period. That means not do anything or do very little, because you can get passed by. And that's the competition that Matt Rule and staff is trying to instill in this team and then through this football team as a whole. Is every day counts. You got to earn your keep every day, and then the best will be rise to the top. And then just because you're not starting on week 1, you could possibly be one of the better players towards the end. So every day is a work day, every day is a competition day. It starts right now, and with the influx of the transfer portal guys, which are probably the best transfer portal guys, I think, as far as needs, because they have legitimate tape.
Yeah.
Right?
Doesn't feel like we're building through there, just kind of patching up.
Well, yeah, there's more. So I always say, I guess you could call it the YouTube tape, right? And I'm gonna say 2 things. Like, number 1, Jamal Banks, right? It's a need at receiver just based on the bad luck that we had injury-wise and situational-wise last year. You got to think it started where it was a great story that Betts came back, right? Got his school, mind right, must have knocked it out in spring and winter conditioning, summer conditioning. You get to fall camp, it's like a week or 2 before the season, and he's like, I'm out.
Yeah, still never got fully understood it, but nonetheless.
Well, things change, because that's when it gets hard. Because the fall, or they can say fall camp, summer camp, because it's hot as all get out. Summer camp is hard. It's different because you're in it. It's new. It's not like when you're in spring, it's still kind of like you practice on Monday, you have Tuesday off. It's I always say it's like a play. It's like when you're in pre-K. It's a lot of it's play day time. Now, granted, you're doing stuff, you're getting it, but summer camp / fall camp is every day, all day, all night. Competition is thick. Every catch that counts, every route counts, because you're playing for Minnesota here very soon. And so that some people could have adverse reactions to that and to say, like, I really don't love it that much. I like it under certain circumstances, but you got to love it at that point in time.
Yeah, that August heat comes around, you got to love it.
And that separates, right? Then you have Marcus Washington, who was suspended for the first half or something like that. But then, as he started to, I assume, have his best game, he got hurt. And then Billy Kemp, was Jeff Sims. It took a little while to get him going. You know what I mean? Then IGC got hurt right away. So your top, realistically, 4 receivers.
And Kemp got hurt.
Yeah,
part of the season too. He was only back there for punt return on one game because I think it was the hand injury.
Right. So essentially, all 4 of your receivers never even got to play 4 games together.
I think Alex Bullock was the only healthy starter out there. Yeah.
So and then he got elevated to starting by, I guess let's just say being overall number 5 on the depth chart and end up being number 1.
Way to take care of your health.
Right. Best ability is your availability. So, as far as like a Jamal Banks and stuff like that, I think it's, where you look at a transfer portal guy, you can put him in. It's kind of like Ben Scott. You could have realistically last year predicted Ben Scott starting and being the player that you would assume he was or been advertised was based on going to YouTube, and you can pull up multiple games. You can see multiple football plays, and you can kind of see how he'd fit into this system. So you're hoping the same for Jamal Banks, and then obviously that will hopefully allow this quarterback room to mature at a good rate because you have a guy that you can actually play pitch and catch with. And then you had some guys, I think, obviously like the Mazuka, the offensive lineman, a guy that started a ton at Florida, kind of out of nowhere. Obviously he was a Nebraska kind of assumptive commit, and then he came back around after Florida. So that's a great get. And again, I think he started 12 or 13 games last year for Florida in the SEC. So it's not like he started a game or two because 2 guys got hurt. So, those are the guys I think that are going to do, the most damage. And then Dowdell, I think he has a couple. He's probably a little bit lower than that, not talent wise, but just for the fact that experience in multiple starts and yardage. But the upside on him is probably as high or higher than the 2 guys I mentioned previous because of the need, opportunity, and he has multiple years left. And so, but what they're going through right now is individual competition, which is competition within themselves, and then they're competing within their position groups based on, where you want to try to establish yourself early in this pecking order of who's going to start. And this team that you have right now, right, that's over there working out at the Go Big Red, that's where the 90% of your 99% of your victories are going to come from, unless there's somebody that falls just in your lap. That's a coach gets fired late, right. Say like somebody from Michigan wants to, a really, really good player wants to come back or something like that. Majority of your victories are going to come through there. And so that's where you can get a little bit of comfort as a player, because now you know exactly who your competition is, versus early in the offseason, say like when the season ended, you didn't know who was coming in. There's always that unknown. It's kind of like waiting for the draft as a player. When I was in the NFL, you always watch and see who's coming, But they draft somebody high at your position, and depending on where you are contract wise and realistically who he is, will tell you where you're at. The coaches can't tell you. Their actions will show you everything. And so where these guys are right now in this phase 1 is a lot of competition, within themselves and the work habits that you're going to establish. I would encourage the players to establish your game plan, your time management, your season, your whole year, as far as how you're going to take, this season on individually right now. You don't want to adjust later on the road, on the run. And then as you start to build up momentum, you start to get into football shape, and that's where the spring comes. That's where you have to separate yourself again in the classroom and with the pads. And there's a difference, Harrison, in the sense of some guys are very, very competitive and energetic without the pads on, because you're not getting hit.
Yeah,
right?
It's a lot more fun when you're just out there playing 7-on-7, catching the ball and not getting hit.
You see where people can be tough guys, play with good technique and all that stuff, and what you really need to do to be successful in the spring, because as much time off that you get, because I think you only get 20 practices, there still is a level of pre-fall camp pushing through it, and it's all brought to an end in a great celebration that you got through your spring. And it's a look in a show of, what the team will look like physically, who's gotten better physically, and we saw great strides with the off season last year with like Nash and Ty, and there's multiple guys, Bryce Benhart, that look totally different physically. And then they played probably the most consistent football for all 3 of them. Right. There is a correlation. They physically look more fit. They are able to be more consistent. They still can get a lot better, but you start to see the surface being scratched of what everybody had been waiting for some guys 3-4 years.
Yeah, it's nothing like going to blow you away, but it's good to see finally progress in that area. Like we needed to see that.
And I wanted to ask you this, and basketball is the same way. Mm-hmm. Is progress to you, and this is where I think things get kind of warped in this evaluation thing. Is progress to you big plays, like the splash plays, or the consistent? Okay.
It's consistent.
Right.
Do it again.
Right.
I mean, it's the best teams are going to be able to do it over and over and over again.
Make the simple plays look spectacular.
Yeah. It's like Auburn. They played great versus Alabama that one game, but they weren't doing that all season.
Right. And they just lost to New Mexico State the week before. Oh, the Jerry Kill came in there and got that. What did he get? $1 million? What did they get? $1 million or something?
Yeah, I think it was.
And it gave you the L, and you went to the bowl game. He Jerry Kill boy. He old slickster and. But the consistency is what has been impressive, and so but that's what you were able to have everybody go to the spring game. They'll evaluate stats and they'll do all this other stuff, but really it's a good celebratory moment of the program. This is kind of what look at our team. Obviously, a lot of eyes are going to be on the quarterback room and some of the other guys, and see if there's some continuity there. Mm-hmm. And then the hardest part is, Harrison, is once spring's over, because that's playtime, right? Because if I missed a tackle against Harrison, it's meaningful, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, I would not sleep with if I missed you on a goal line in the situation of football. But realistically, that can be fixed because there's so much time.
Mm-hmm.
But then once spring's over, you have this, I call it the gray period, and the analogy that I use is like when you take off in a plane. And winter conditioning and spring is okay, you take off and it's clear, not clear skies, but you got good visibility and you're going to go through the turbulence and stuff. After spring ball, that's where it gets cloudy, and you got to either put the hammer down and get on top of the clouds, and I don't know if you ever seen it, then it's real sunny up there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, because the reason why is because you get some time off, you can let this celebratory moment, or even if you had a good spring, cloud your judgment for 2 or 3 weeks, and then everything that you did for the first 3 or 4 or 5 months can go down the drain. And then what happens, Harrison? You're playing catch up in the off season, which is the summer,
mm-hmm.
right? Then when you get to fall, that's where panic starts to happen. And what can happen is, and this is where obviously Coach Roll and these guys do a good job. I'm just talking about the off season. Is what you could do in panic is you could go to the easy thing, right? I'll put an extra hour of tape in tomorrow. Well, you know what tomorrow leads to? Next week. Next week is I ain't doing it, right? Then it turns into I'm just in the right spot. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to do that and play football. So that's where you have to really build the leadership, build the culture, build the expectations, and everybody hold each other accountable. Starting, in the last, I think they're in week 2 maybe, or whatever they're in. And this is where you start to win your games. Coach Osborne used to always tell us, you win first 4 games, what the work ethic and culture and the, expectations that you put in through spring, your middle games, which are hard, right? Which I just explained to you after spring, and then how hard you train and what you do to get better, all the way up through summer workouts, right? So that's the middle of the season. And so then when we come into the fall camp, we work extremely hard, which allow us to have the conditioning, the mental focus, and the mental power to push through and finish strong. And that's where this football team is trying to get to. And people always ask, can you change things in 1 year? Yeah, you can, but it's not going to be based on the coaches. It's a combination. It has to be in that locker room, and then they really take what the coaches say and the quotes and all the other stuff and apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can really make up a lot of ground. And you can say the best coaches get them to do it, but I always say this, Harrison. What's funny is when you think of the best coaches, the best teams, the best quote unquote leaders, right? Because a coach is a leader, right? A leader can be a coach, right? Generally, the best leaders have people that want to be led, even though they are future head coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they work within your structure, right? It's like say you're the president of the United States, and then we'd be a great country right now. I could see
we'd be rolling right now,
and say right. So you go through your tenure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the vice president. So if it's great under you, I am the vice president. So I want to be led by you. Now we are probably working in conjunction, right? Ideally, right? And then once you're done through your, I think it was 8 years, and then I become head coach. And if I continue along it, well, then it's because I was willing and wanting to be led. And then when it became, then it kind of one of those things that just kind of falls over. And that's the same thing with players.
Yeah, I think that's what makes Brock Purdy is, well, I'm sure we'll talk about NFL later, but he's very coachable. Like every stop he's been at, very coachable player. And that's done him a lot of success. He's not the most athletic, but he listens to his coaches to the smallest detail on the form, and you don't see him turning the ball over a lot.
And we're going to cover that in the next segment because I agree with you, but I will push back on you on that.
Okay.
On that assessment of him. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Because I think people try to tag coachable players as self-made, as
let's be real. The 49ers offense.
I know. But there's plenty of them though, right? Because you got guys, he's just a game manager. Or I'm talking about not you, but just talking about
like
people.
Cam Newton's when he's commenting.
Or people in general.
He called Goff and Purdy.
Right.
It must be a pretty good time to be a game manager.
Right.
You got two of them in the playoffs.
Right. And I'll push back, not on you, but I'll push back on that thought.
All right.
Because I think if you really, really, I always say peel back that onion, it's either going to make your eyes water or you're going to eat it. And you're going to put some, you know how you eat a white onion? Cold water, and you can eat it just as eat it whole. There you go. and onions are good for the heart. Anyways, Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging. Quick break, come back, NFL playoffs, quarterback assessment. We'll be right back.
Hi, it's Joel Norman, the voice of your Lincoln Stars hockey team. Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. to hear the latest on the Stars with myself, head coach Rocky Russo, and special player guests.
If you're looking for a pre-owned tractor to upgrade your operation, you'll find a wide selection at your local Landmark Implement. We'll work with you to find the right equipment for your needs at a price that's right for you, all backed by Landmark's extensive parts and service network. During the month of January, choose from an 8-month interest waiver or a 3.9% fixed rate for up to 60 months on used 6, 7, 8, or 9 series tractors with approved credit. Visit landmarkimp.com to see our complete inventory or stop by your local Landmark location today and experience the Landmark difference.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. Robotics club and space club and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? Nah, forget that. How about margarita clubs and old-fashioned clubs? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge for the best clubs in town. Try all 10 varieties of Upside margaritas or old fashions and take home a free souvenir glass. Grab the whole crew and pair it with taco night on Mondays or whiskey Wednesdays. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake.
The Serve Nebraska Volunteer Service Commission was created to ensure that community service would always be a priority in our state. I'm Governor Jim Pillen, and this year I'm inviting you to help celebrate Serve Nebraska's 30th year by becoming a volunteer. Our state's best resource is its people. You have the potential to make a significant impact. Thank you.
Sponsored by Serve Nebraska, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top-shelf liquor to crowd-favorite beer, Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round. And their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Introducing The Outlet by Sartor Heyman. The Outlet brings you luxurious Sartor Heyman quality jewelry at unbeatable prices. Shop our expansive inventory of overstocked merchandise and a vast estate collection that just hasn't found its home yet. This is your chance to own stunning designer jewelry at a fraction of the cost. Elevate your style at The Outlet by Sartor Heyman, where luxury and affordability meet. Downtown at 12th and O or online at sartorheyman.com.
Hi, my name is Molly Party. I'm a realtor with MP Dodge Real Estate. I'm a newly licensed agent and considered numerous brokerages before deciding on MP Dodge. I chose the company that gives me the most support in my new career, plus guidance and encouragement along the way. MP Dodge has a unique mentoring program for new agents. It's helped jumpstart my career and has a supportive management team and administrative staff. So if you're contemplating a career in real estate, look no further than MP Dodge. It will be the best decision you make.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions. Back to Inside the Huddle, sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging. Here is your host, Jay Foreman.
We're back inside the Huddle. Jay Foreman, Advanced Medical Imaging, 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. Before we jump into championship weekend, we got a little bit longer segment than a real short one. Before we send you off to Pete Ferguson. And just to wrap up the men's and women's basketball, both of them got trounced pretty good. For the women's, again, they went up to Iowa, and that's always a hard place to play.
The women's, I'm not ever accepting a loss. A little more understandable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was really rolling. Caitlin Clark was hitting.
Yeah, she had some crazy shots. She had one with they were scrambling. She was maybe 4 feet past the half court line. Just checked it up.
It's like trick shots.
Yeah, that's a really tough assignment.
It is, and going up there and they play really well at home.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of I want to say kind of. They play at 1:00, but to play up at Iowa City is tough. They competed hard and they just got beat. But I will tell you this, as far as the women's team, like at some point in time, when you play competitive sports, no matter who you're going against, you have to meet force with force. And the stuff and Caitlin Clark, in my opinion, is easily probably the best player in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
At least in my opinion. I think she's a great player for basketball in general, especially women's basketball. Brought her to, I think, even bigger heights than probably some of the people before. And I wouldn't necessarily know a generational player, but if she continues to play like this at the highest level, which is WNBA,
she might be generational.
Right. It's definitely trending fast towards that, in my opinion.
It's the most eyes I've ever seen. You got to shout out Angel Reese LSU too. That kind of helped.
But I think Caitlin Clark gives you more, because the reason what people don't understand is, and this is what I say about LeBron and Steph Curry, why people gravitate more probably towards Steph Curry and less criticism of him. There's more people walking around the size of Steph Curry that can do some of the things he's doing at the gym versus LeBron. Same thing with Caitlin Clark. She's aspiring to young females and males on what you can be through hard work. With all that being said, at some point in time, okay, Harrison, you got to meet force with force.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who you are, okay? you are not going to do some of the things that she does to me on the basketball court. Now, if I was obviously a female, let's get that out there. That's just the way it's got to be.
Mm-hmm.
You are not going to be pushing me. You're not going to get away from it's just not. It's not going to happen.
I think that's what makes her so good. Is she is. I think it's just mentally brutal to defend her because all the games she plays, kind of like what you're talking about. Like part of that's like I'm gonna get in your head, kind of Jordan-esque.
She's in there, and it's all part of it. But we're gonna end all that though, because what she did to I don't know which of our players it was during kind of like the scramble, and then she shoved her down pretty good.
Yep.
Oh yeah. That's what we're watching right here. You come to this hole, go to the basket. You will touch the ground every single time because you have to set the tone in your program that you're not gonna let anybody come and punk you. And the reason why it kind of boils over to the men's team.
Yeah, they get punked on the road this year every time.
Right. And so at some point in time, you either got to change it in the locker room. Or whatever we're doing before we play it, then we're different. It might be extreme, and you lose a 22-point game. Nebraska started out hot, and I felt like Maryland. That's probably the best game Maryland's going to play. They had 2 bench players like double their average season, and they were all by threes.
Well, this is like at some point it's a little bit indicative of our defense too, because we can't just keep going. They shot really well. Creighton did that to you. Wisconsin did that to you.
And
Iowa did that to you.
Yeah.
And they're all on the road. Like at some point, it's indicative. Like I get it. We protect the point over the perimeter, and that kind of shows up in an ugly way sometimes.
Right.
And that's how you let those bench players get hot.
Yeah. And they had. I think that when Maryland had 32 points, they had 21 bench points.
Yeah. The bench took over.
Right. They won them the game.
Yeah.
And this was in the first half,
and that is not the same bench. They weren't doing that at all this year.
Exactly. And then, granted, your bench players generally play better at home, but all of them. I mean, the way the game was going, essentially, the bench players were beating our starters, and so that's where it was really disappointing. I mean, we can get into the whole, You can get into the whole effort and all this other stuff. The bright spot probably was CJ Wilcher, who's been a bright spot all year. But everything else, when you don't have one starter in double figures, that's definitely pedestrian, output by this, basketball team, which is definitely better than that. And especially going on the road and, to Piscataway, the last road game and, handing the game over to Rutgers. And so,
yeah, first half, and just the ESPN predictor already had 95% Maryland's going to win this game.
Right.
After one half of play.
Right. Yeah, it was over. And that's a hard game to coach, but then also you got to find a way to challenge yourself to maybe try to remedy something in the future. And, by no means am I, trying to, fashion myself as the head coach in Nebraska. And yes, you can say, you could look at the stats and say, okay, Maryland shot way better than they had all season. Well, you got to think you got 7 threes out of the 2 dudes that haven't really hit it to that rate. You got to think Kaiser was 4 or 5. That's 80%.
Yeah.
And Long was 3 or 4. That's 75%.
Mm-hmm.
That's 7 threes.
Yeah.
21 points, but that's it right there because nobody else off the bench scored. You get what I'm saying? I mean, that's really the 25 points with these dudes, and then. So that's just kind of where, Nebraska, lost themselves. And
18 turnovers, too. You can't – the turnovers were –
They were egregious.
It's a good defense by Maryland. Not that good.
Yeah. And the thing is, my man Reese from Maryland loves playing against Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned him on Old School this week. He would be the factor. He is the factor because of, number one, he's a lefty. Number two, he's extremely athletic. I think he definitely was a high 4-star coming out of high school. He's excellent on the boards. He's excellent out on the wing. He's tough, and he finishes around the rim. And he has now a stretch game to where he can hit the occasional 3. He's a problem.
To me, that's Mass' next challenge. He seems to have a harder time with the bouncier guys. Maybe not as tall. And Edey, he seems to take that matchup a lot better. They're kind of that big giant. It's the quick get up, kind of like the second bounce is really fast.
Yeah,
he has a hard time with those guys.
Well, everybody has a hard time with those guys because they're not in one position.
Yeah,
so,
that's a good point.
With Reese, he's physical enough that he could play with his back behind to the basket. But what he can do is he can go from point A to point B to C, and then you're not going to get a good box out on him. He'll get second chance points. If you get caught in a rotation against a guard, it's a guaranteed 2 points, potentially 3 if you get an and one. That's where, and then he's able to kick it out, and he's improved his ability to pass out of either double teams or fake double teams.
Yeah.
So that lets me know that he's better as a student of game, and they play with great energy at home. Nebraska got shellacked. So as far as the basketball programs, onward and upward. And hopefully, look, you got a big game against Wisconsin at home.
You got Illinois right after.
Right. And there's no guarantee. Don't show up to PBA saying, okay, we're going to win just because you're at home. Address what you did yesterday, wholeheartedly and deal with it and then get better at it. So I think Fred and those guys will do it. Same with Coach Williams as well, because they got Iowa, I think, this weekend as well here, right?
Yeah.
Or is it next weekend?
For the women's,
they just played Iowa, then they play them again. Is it the 11th?
I think it might be the 11th.
Yeah, so day before the Super Bowl, so we can ring them in real good. So, anyways,
they got their next one's actually going to be
Purdue.
Yep,
yeah,
Purdue,
but I said next time you get to play Iowa.
Next time,
yeah. It's the next time they play Iowa is the 11th, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Sunday on the 11th.
Yeah, that's circled on my calendar. Anyways, we got about 8 more minutes to dive into Championship Sunday, and we'll end it on Championship Sunday. And before we went to break, Harrison, we were talking about Brock Purdy and Jared Goff as well, right? 2 kind of quarterbacks. Because you got to think the separation between how you view the quarterbacks is just as they're both the AFC quarterbacks versus the NFC, and it just worked out that way. Mahomes and Jackson are in a different stratosphere, what people think. But I always find it weird that when you talk about a Brock Purdy or Jared Goff, people always try to dummy down their skill set based on their ability to be coachable or to operate within a system that you have excellent players. So it's like downgrading John Stockton because he had great players as a point guard around him, and then in saying that, well, he's not Tim Hardaway. Well, you don't need to be Tim Hardaway.
Yeah.
He needs to be John Stockton, Tony Parker, right? You could say the same thing for Tony Parker. He had Tim Duncan, Robinson, Kawhi Leonard, Ginobili. Those are all Hall of Fame players, right? Great players when they were playing. Nobody knew they were going to be Hall of Fame while they were at their peak or potentially before their peak. That's where Brock Purdy is with San Francisco. Extremely, I would probably argue with you that the 49ers have the best roster in the NFL, and it might not be close.
Yeah.
Now, they do have holes, right? Because the right tackle could be an issue. But they're so immensely talented, and not only talented at the top level, you got to think in the middle, or they have depth as well, that they can hide that. You know what I mean? You can't just expose it because they're so immensely talented everywhere else. You got to think they probably have the best running back in the game in him, right? They have that best probably X factor in Deebo Samuel, right? Receiver, kind of do it all. Arguably, easily a top 4 tight end. I'd argue probably for what he is skill set wise, matchup wise, top 2, top 3.
Yeah, with the blocking that you're not going to see on the highlights. He's still top
he's
3
a factor.
tight end.
Factor. You have within their system the best fullback in Jusek, right? You have one of the best left tackles ever to step foot on an NFL field, and by far the best left tackle in the game of Trent Williams. And their offensive line, even though it's down this year, is still one of the top 12 offensive lines in the league. And I haven't even got to Brandon Ayuk or Jennings, right? Ayuk emerged this year, especially with Deebo Samuel being hurt. He's a 1,000-yard receiver. Jennings, how do you think they beat Green Bay? Him. He made huge plays, right? So, and you got to think they picked up Randy Gregory in a trade after the Broncos got shellacked.
Yep.
Right? And he pays dividends on, and he don't even start. You don't even hear about him.
I know. That's the one thing. I was waiting for Randy Gregory to make a splash, and they haven't even really used him yet.
Well, he did, right? Because he got in. I mean, when he first got there, he did.
But
right?
he's that good depth piece still.
Well, he was about to start playing. Well, then guess what they did? You know what? We like you, Randy Gregory. We're going to go get Chase Young. So we got Bosa on one end, right? Doing his thing. Just got a huge contract. He's got double-digit sacks. Then we're going to bring Chase Young in, who's finally looking back like he's healthy from the ACL injuries. He had 6.5 sacks when they traded him. He ended up with like 9.5, pretty much 10. And then guess what else we got? We got probably the best interior defensive line depth-wise. You got 4 guys, and the 2 best inside linebacker combinations.
Yeah.
So when you have Brock Purdy and Jared Goff, and I think the Detroit is probably a little less seasoned, but they have depth as well. Is that people say, "Oh, well, he's a game manager. He's he's self-made and all that." No, he's a football player.
That's a good compliment. I don't.
That's what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing, just saying it differently. It's a great compliment.
Yeah, you don't turn the ball over, and you run the game efficiently.
Right, and you operate well within whatever the play's called.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where I think Brock Purdy doesn't do well is he relies on that system too much, and maybe he doesn't have enough confidence yet in his quarterback skills, because he can throw the ball. He's a heck of an athlete.
But like even that, I don't like we talked about it, but he had that big drive against the Packers where
when it needs it,
and it was everything.
It was
3 big 3rd and longs. He got them all, led that team down
on the money too.
Exactly,
and it was magical.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in a big game, you got to think he got hurt last year.
Yeah.
So that he didn't really even get a chance to compete, and so there was a lot of pressure on him because everybody all season has said that if the 49ers don't get to the Super Bowl, it's because of him.
Yeah.
Man, to be frank with you, that back end of the 49ers defense has not played consistently this year. I know Tumunga is hurt, so that hurts that defense, but ultimately they're professionals. They can play a lot better. But, when you think about these quarterbacks, I believe that it's a lost art of the ability to play the position of quarterback.
Sound like Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
If you don't think Patrick Mahomes was a periodic game manager against the Buffalo Bills, then you're just sitting there and just pushing play and watching the game. His ability just to keep the chains moving, make the easy throw, to be efficient, and then take your chances when you need to. That's called game. That's called managing the game. You know what else is called managing the game? Keeping them on time and efficient and eating up the clock and putting the pressure back on the opposing offense. That's how you play. These guys are football players. Now, granted, Jackson and Mahomes are way more talented than them. But within their system, they're just as important. And I could argue with you when they're playing well, just as effective as a quarterback, being a game manager. I think sometimes, people get fixated on where you're drafted at, and then they won't let you get away from that label. Can we now get to the point that Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant and he was drafted, I'll even say 4 rounds too late. So he was a 7th round pick. I would say at the end of the day, Brock Purdy should have been at least a 3rd round pick. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? So it shouldn't be, you got to relinquish him from that kind of, you're a 7th round. You know what I mean? There's 1st round pick guys that get nervous.
Yeah.
That don't play well.
Well, and some of them haven't even really played yet. We're still waiting on Trey Lance, which is crazy.
You just took it out right. So the guy that you traded or gave away the house for is in Dallas, and Dallas don't even feel confident that he could even push Dak to even be the future, right?
And Dak's only got 1 more year, right?
Yeah. So I think that's what, and then Jared Goff, with him is like, Sean McVay always had an affinity for Stafford, and then it's like Stafford has a better arm. Well, Stafford has one of the best arms ever in this era of football. That doesn't mean that Jared Goff is garbage. And then he goes to Detroit, and then you try to dummy down what he's done in Detroit. It takes a true leader to go into a franchise that was recently 0-16, never even in the playoff hunt, nowhere near in the NFC Central hunt, and lead a team in the city of Detroit, and then get them on the cusp of getting to the Super Bowl. So that's the championship weekend. We're going to take a quick break, come back, give our predictions, or give my predictions and why, and see if I'm right or wrong, which obviously probably people like when I'm wrong. Anyways, this is Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle, Advanced Medical Imaging. We'll be right back. This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
What do you think of when you hear the chocolate season? Artisan chocolates? Of course, they have the best chocolates this side of the Atlantic. Friendly neighborhood coffee shop? Yup, they're that too. A nationally recognized top-tier brunch spot. Waffle weekends, baby. And the place to grab a gift for literally any occasion? Everybody loves chocolate. See for yourself at the Chocolate Season, 40th and Old Cheney, or order ahead online at thechocolateseason.com.
That include health, dental, vision, PTO, and 401k options. Action has created a positive team environment for over 50 years. Apply online at actionlincoln.com.
Okay, it's time to sell the house. How do we even begin to choose from the hundreds of realtors in town?
Easy. We make a pros list.
You mean a pros and cons list?
No, just a pros list. We need someone with pro photography to showcase the house in the best possible way, pro marketing to make sure we get maximum exposure, pro negotiations so we know we get the best price.
This is one of those times where you already know the right answer, isn't it?
You know it is. Ben Bleicher and Professional Realty Group.
Contact Ben Bleicher and the team at Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services Ambassador online at prg-ne.com.
You can get diesel anywhere, but what about Atomic Diesel? That comes from Stern. Atomic Diesel is your solution to all your cold weather problems. Prevent clogged fuel filters, increase your fuel economy, and save money with Atomic Diesel. Contact Roger at Stern today by calling 1-800-477-2744 to see how Atomic Diesel and the rest of their line of fuels and lubricants can keep your operation running at max capacity.
Happy New Year's!
U-Stop is starting 2024 off on the right foot, and you can too.
For every gallon sold on Tuesdays in January, U-Stop will donate 2 cents of every gallon sold to the Lead Center for the Performing Arts.
The Lead Center has provided Lincoln with the best entertainment and educational opportunities for the youth in our community.
I just got done with my first singing class. U-Stop at U-Stop.
Giving back is as easy as filling up on Tuesdays.
U-Stop at U-Stop.
This is Brad with Midwest Bank, proudly serving our Nebraska communities for over 70 years. We're a community bank, making local decisions, supporting local organizations, and helping local businesses and farms succeed. We are dedicated to serving our clients and helping them meet their financial needs with sound, innovative banking solutions. From an array of checking and deposit accounts, cash management services, to small business, real estate, and ag lending. We're here for you, your community, your bank, Midwest Bank. Find out more at midwestbank.com. Member FDIC.
Hi, it's Joel Norman, the voice of your Lincoln Stars hockey team. Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. to hear the latest on the Stars with myself, head coach Rocky Russo, and special player guests.
Hello, everybody. It's Charlie Stone, and here with me is Andy Goodyear of Honda of Lincoln. Andy, I hear that new Honda manufacturing continues to go up, and you have new Hondas in stock now.
That's correct, Charlie. We have more than 40 new Hondas in stock right now. It's great that a customer can come in and buy a new Honda and drive it home that day. New Honda inventory keeps getting better each month.
Okay, then. How about used cars, Andy?
We have more than 100 pre-owned vehicles to choose from right now, and a lot of fresh trade-ins are coming in daily. We have just about every maker model you can imagine in any price range.
Thanks again, Andy. People love the selection and great service at Honda of Lincoln. Maybe it's time you come experience the Honda of Lincoln way of doing business. 27th and Yankee Hill, or online at hondaoflincoln.com.
In every office, there's two types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe. You're listening to Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman, sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging.
We're back. Quick segment. Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging, 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. Appreciate Dr. Raz and Dr. Finn. They will be in every other month on Old School to discuss either recent big injuries through professional sports or possibly some of the many that I've had or the ones that are maybe popping up through youth sports as well. So always tune in to either Old School or Inside the Huddle. Here in 2024, got a lot of stuff going on. But with that being said, prediction time, Harrison. I'm going to do the easy one first, right? And obviously, we've been talking about Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. I'm going to go with the 49ers. They're at home. They have the experience. Obviously, I think they have experience even from GM all the way down to head coach and the players. They've been here before. They've been very focused to get back to this point. They probably would have liked to beat Philadelphia because they felt like they were undermanned. Obviously, with the quarterback being knocked out of the game in the first 5 or maybe the second play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So they're here. I think they're at home. I do think Detroit will be a game opponent, but I think the game will go that Detroit. Sometimes in those championship games. Now, granted, I wasn't ever able to get to this far as in my NFL career, but I will tell you, as far as I don't think there's too much of a difference when you play for a national championship. Is that sometimes players can get caught up in the glitz and glamour in the moment, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm here. We're one step away from the Super Bowl, and you can kind of play in slow motion. So if you want to and especially when you're new on the block, right? And if you want, for you Kansas City fans, because we're going to get to you next. A couple years ago, Baker Mayfield took Cleveland to the playoffs. They played on the road at Kansas City. The first half, they looked like they sleptwalked through the half.
Mm-hmm.
Then they went into halftime, and I think they probably realized, like, man, we can actually play with these guys. Now, I think Kansas City was always going to win, but in the second half, it looked more like the Cleveland Browns team as far as energy, execution, physicality in the second half, but it was a little too late. And so that's what I think will happen in this Detroit game. I think they will kind of sleepwalk through the first half. San Francisco will come out really, really energetic. And that 15 play, play sheet, play call is going to be dangerous for Aaron Glenn and company on the road. So I think San Francisco will win. It'll be a long flight for Detroit back because there will be a lot of like, man, I got caught up in the moment. The moment was too big. Big shout out to Mr. Go 30. And then on to, I'm going to call it the Super Bowl before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's the way to put it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, is that fair enough? No disrespect to 49ers or the Lions or their fans. That you got the two hottest quarterbacks in the league. The best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes. If they're starting a franchise, I'm taking him. Everybody probably would, right?
Yep.
He's probably the only guy that, and then you got the guy that's Lamar Jackson.
Statistically the best this year.
And he's been the best in the biggest moment. He's raised the level of his game, already being an MVP early in his career to, I'm assuming, another MVP this year. And then you have, I think the Baltimore Ravens are back. They're starting to get healthy. Marlon Humphrey's back. You got an all-pro corner coming back, waiting for you. That defense that Baltimore has, I think Kansas City has not faced a defense on the road like this. I think the ability for them to play their best offensive game of the year last week, and this is not taking anything away from the Chiefs, is because they're so familiar with Buffalo. Buffalo was depleted defensively, and some of Buffalo's bigger name players did not play well against Kansas City at home. Baltimore won't do that. And I think Lamar Jackson is the ultimate X factor. He's a guy that you can game plan for. You can't stop. He's just like Patrick Mahomes. I could be covering Travis Kelce the best I can. He's going to put a ball probably a place that only Kelce can catch it. But my prediction is I think Baltimore will win it, mainly is because they're at home. And I trust and it's weird. I'm going to say this because I'm a huge Mahomes and I'm a huge Andy Reid fan. I trust Baltimore more than Kansas City. And it's hard for me to say that because I feel like this is the best defense Kansas City's ever had. Game 1 to game 18, 19. But the offense hasn't been consistent enough. I feel like Baltimore is ready and primed to get to the Super Bowl. 49ers, Baltimore Ravens make it through. We'll see if I'm right. Appreciate you guys listening. We had Husker basketball wrap up, football wrap up, obviously playoff predictions. See you next week. Jay Foreman, Advanced Medical Imaging, Inside the Huddle. Pete Ferguson is next. We'll holler at you.